Hello, welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine with Norman Goodfellows, and welcome to one of the coolest weeks of the wine year. Why is it so? Because this week is the latest edition of an event that has become not just huge in South Africa, but huge to the extent that people come in from all over the world to be part of it. I think back to last year, we had the owner of Luxembourg dropped in to come and visit, and assorted South Africans who live in London flew out for the week, and a whole pile of Europeans, a couple of Americans, people who've come in for this absolutely awesome event. So what is the event? It is the Cape Wine Auction, and over the last, well, it's almost pushing 2 decades now, well north of 100 million rand has been raised from this event for some incredible causes across the winelands. It's a wonderful collaboration of the people of the winelands coming together to raise money, to do good, to uplift the collective community. I love it. I've been lucky enough to host it for many years. I will be hosting it again this weekend at Laborie, and I will be doing so amongst others with the big boss who is running it. Well, he thinks he's the big boss. We know Wendy really is, but pretending to be the big boss and also providing some wine is my good friend Paul Clüver. Mr. Clüver, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Dan. It's my pleasure. And like you, I'm very excited about the prospect of raising money to ensure that we are educating our future generations.
It's such a lovely way to be able to support and to help and to raise money because, yes, a significant sum of money is raised, but there's also so much fun had. It has become a really iconic calendar event where the raising the money is certainly not secondary. That is the reason we're there. But we do have an awfully good time along the way.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, who said you can't have fun while doing good? And I think this is one example of doing just that. We are in the beautiful setting of the Cape Winelands, surrounded by vineyards at this time of Laborie. And it's good food, an amazing group of people, and just enjoying ourselves.
Paul, for people who aren't overly familiar with the Cape Wine Auction, possibly hearing about it now for the very first time, give me the snapshot. How does it work? What is it about? Why did it come together?
Well, it was founded now, but this would be our 11th auction. We had 2 years of our hiatus during COVID. But the amazing thing that was done by the Cape Wine Auction, it was founded with the purpose of creating a charity that makes a difference in education in the winelands, specifically focusing on the winelands. And if you think one of our greatest challenges to ensure that we have a well-functioning society and country is making sure that our youth is well educated. I think it's a major challenge that we have, and we are addressing this actually. So it was founded. Mike Graaff was one of the founding trustees with a great vision. He put it together. An amazing group of people together, including the likes of Wendy Applebaum, Michael O'Donnell from Raymond Clüver, being part of the trustees today, with the likes of Villiers, Graaff, Johan van Zyl, Villiers, all participating in helping that we manage this thing properly. And what's very, very exciting for this year, we have bespoke barrels that have been donated and labeled, and you can only buy 300 bottles of that wine ever made. And then, of course, we put the intro also the auctions.
The wine that is available this weekend is a terrific selection. For the first time, there is a bubbles option, Colmont bringing in something rather special. There's wine from your good friend and fellow trustee, Sir de Villiers Graaff, with the fabulous Rubaiyat out of Durbanville coming from Grendel, wine from people like Vergelegen and Antonie Rupert and Creation. And then there is Paul Clüver itself. Now, I'm not remotely objective here because I adore this wine. This is your Seven Flags Pinot Noir. It is benchmark South African Pinot Noir. It's hard to find anything that will top this. Tell me a bit about this particular vintage and why you feel it's a really special one to be able to get hold of, if you're lucky enough to do so this weekend.
Yeah, thank you. I think all the wines that are pretty amazing and special. I should start there. and I'm so grateful to our fellow wine producers who have come together and donated. What's great about the Pinot Noir, it's one barrel, so it's more limited than the normal 7 flags. It's taken out of that batch for the vintage, and I mean, for me, the amazing thing is the combination of so many years of hard work coming together in a bottle of wine, and Pinot Noir being the only red wine that we focus on. It's a wonderful example of just keeping at the grindstone and making sure that we improve every single year. The net result is what the team wants.
Well, we can't mention this wine without mentioning a family member of yours. Andries has been making wine at Paul Clüver since the late 1800s. He knows every single inch of the Paul Clüver property back to front. It's allowed him to take his extraordinary natural gift for making wine and couple it with this understanding of the terroir, of what vineyard works, and just be able to give through this 7 flags this most extraordinary expression of Pinot Noir.
With quite a lot of that, and I mean, the amazing thing is, Andries has been with us now since 97, so almost 50 years. And if you think about it, no vintage, you can learn from the previous vintage, know where you've made a mistake and try and rectify it. But it's definitely not like making a food dish and if you know you added too much salt or pepper last night, you could fix it tonight, right? Or even in the same evening. The wine, if you screw up this bit, you can actually fix it next year. So knowing the vines, knowing the vineyards, having that experience, I think is vital to ensure long-term success. If you look at some of the most famous wine producers of the world, being Laborie, even they have only 3 winemakers, and that handover process. I mean, your next query could be is how do you ensure that you continue improving? How do you ensure that you have the very best person in the job? And with that, we have Martin from Burgundy who also consults for us, who challenges us with wine. He comes out during harvest, and he comes out during blending, and literally he's there to almost poke the bear, right? Challenge the winemaker and say, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Which I think is of critical importance, and not a criticism of winemaking, but almost an answer to think about. I mean, even Roger Federer, one of the greatest tennis players in the world, had a coach, right? Tiger Woods has a coach, and I think you want to be at the top of your game and be someone that sharpens you and they want fun.
Until now, I think Roger Federer and Tiger Woods being mentioned at places like the Laureus World Sports Awards would have been the ultimate accolade. They've now been compared to the 7 flags at Paul Clüver. I think that is a new level of endorsement for them both. Paul, before we let you head off, you've got some amazing wine. There are also some incredible lots from a hospitality perspective. Go and hang out at Element House, go and spend time on a beautiful island off the coast of Mozambique. All of these come together just as all of the winemakers come together. And I think that's been the real heartbeat of the success of the Cape Wine Auction, this remarkable camaraderie with all of you united for this purpose and wanting to really show that individually you could probably do a little, but together you really can do so much.
Yeah, without a doubt, this is the generosity of the trustees putting in their time and effort to the winemakers all donating so generously. I mean, this Eindhoven family has been giving Guerrero lot in Mozambique. The Rovers Rail with Villiers, Creation and what the Creation is giving a barrel to the Fox and giving experiential lots. And the list just goes on and on, right? It's not limited to wine mining. I think overall we've had more than 100 different wineries participated in the auction and giving their time, their product, putting together lots, and 100% of the proceeds ends up going to the children where we can make it.
Well, you have made an enormous difference. You will continue to make an enormous difference, and Saturday will showcase that marvellously. Paul, best of luck. I will see you down at the Cape auction, Cape Wine auction end of the week. Can't wait to be part of it, and can't wait to celebrate another fantastic edition of just a wonderful, wonderful celebration of wine and philanthropy in equal measure.
Thank you very much, Dan.
There we go. Paul Clüver, the 2021 Seven Flags Pinot Noir, part of the wine on sale this weekend at Laborie, as the winemakers of the Cape come together to create some incredible change. The Cape Wine Auction is at Laborie this weekend. There will be an extraordinary group of philanthropists, there will be wonderful winemakers, there will be socialites and celebrities, and then there will be aristocracy, because amongst the trustees for the Cape Wine Auction Trust is, I think he's not just Sir de Villiers Graaff in terms of the Grendel, he pretty much runs Durbanville as well, and we're very excited to have him back on the show. De Villiers, a warm welcome ahead of what's a really, really exciting weekend. Are there some goosebumps as we count down to the big auction on Saturday?
Yeah, Dan, thanks for having me, and I'm really excited to be attending on Saturday, the morning and the evening, the afternoon. And excited to see how the lots go.
You are involved in all manner of aspects of the wine industry. You're also, as with the Grendel, involved in all sorts of philanthropic endeavours and have been for many years. Why this one? Why have you chosen to not just support through the Grendel with some wonderful wine that we'll chat about in a moment, but also personally to come on board as a trustee and to be part of this team that puts the auction together and takes money out to the community?
Well, I think Paul Clüver invited me a year or two ago, and what really drew me to get involved was the fact that all the money is raised from the auction to go to education and to children in the wine mill. So that's really close to the family. In that my great-grandfather, who was born in Villiers in 1859, was one of 9 children. He was the middle child. And he never had a formal education and was sent to Cape Town to work for his uncle who owned a butchery as a 12-year-old, where he worked as an apprentice, and then went to night school to get his education. And in 1905, he donated £100,000 to build what is now known as the restaurant school in Villiers. And the school is still supported to stay with helping with renovations and with a bursary. And throughout my farming career, we've always supported our farm worker children with education and other privileges. The district was an extension, obvious extension, to expand our interest in helping improve lives of particularly the underprivileged.
We live in a world, Villiers, where if we turn on the TV, we open social media, we flick through those few newspapers that still exist. The headlines generally aren't terribly uplifting. There's a lot of grimness to the world in which we live. And yet I find when I come away from this particular event, when I walk off stage on the Saturday and we look at a big number on screen and we look at a room full of people who've all come together for the same reason, it does make you feel that maybe there is still just a little bit of hope for this planet we live on.
Yes, there's a lot of noise out in the world, in the news, both internationally and domestically, and it does often become overwhelming, which one has to, as an individual and as a wine producer and as a South African, you just have to keep on moving ahead, moving forward, and doing whatever you can to not only survive as a business, but also make a contribution to society. And I think that's critical for the next generation. And ultimately, that's why we're doing what we're doing, is to preserve and to improve. So future generations can say, well, the previous generation did at least do something.
Well, you do a terrific job of it, and you do it with a wonderful team. You mentioned Paul Clüver. You've got amongst that team Ken Forrester, who I suspect arrives at breakfast meetings with the trust with a magnum in each hand and opens them for breakfast. Raymond and Lovu, normally seen on the internet wearing nothing but a shower cap, flogging his Black Elephant wines from a bathtub. The completely impossible Wendy Applebaum. But it's a selection of great characters and great supporters beyond just the trust. Does it surprise you at just how closely knit the community around this auction is, and how much people have come together to support the auction?
Yes, it's really heartening to get together as a one body of producers, and in general the wine industry is very cooperative. And what I found with my involvement in the industry, I only got involved in 2011, is how wonderful, as you mentioned, the characters are in the industry, and learning from people who are so willing to share knowledge and information. There's no real direct competition because we individually so unique, and we have our own unique stories, and our wine is so unique. So ultimately, we are selling brand South Africa, and the more wine we can sell as a collective, we will sell as individuals at the end of the day.
And you're also going to be showcasing your wine and getting plenty of admiration for it this weekend, because the barrel auction includes a wine that has taken many by surprise. I'll give you an example. I had a friend round for dinner late last year, not from South Africa, but knows South African wine and South African wine regions fairly well. And I poured some Rubaiyat from, I think it was about 2015, 2016, but didn't tell him what he was drinking. And he smiled, nodded, and said, "Oh, this could be a world-class Bordeaux, but I think knowing you, it's probably a world-class Stellenbosch. Either way, it's great wine." I said, "Well, it is South African, but it comes from Durbanville." And he laughed and said, no, where is it really from? Because there's often a perception that Durbanville, because the Sauvignon Blanc is so staggeringly good, that's kind of the style. And yet in the Rubaiyat, very different. And yet I have to say, consistently one of my favorite red wines, and one that people are going to be able to buy at the auction this weekend.
Yes, the Rubaiyat's got an interesting story for the Grendel. It's a Bordeaux blend, and it was the brainchild of my father. I think because he was very keen on philosophy. He studied PPE at Oxford, and one of his favorite poems was the Rubaiyat written by Omar Khayyam, which was written in the 11th century by a Persian poet, mathematician, philosopher, very well known in literary circles. And he wrote the poem, the Rubaiyat, which means quatrain, about love, the meaning of life, and very often included the word wine in his prose. So I think for my father, firstly, I think because it was written as a quatrain, so i.e. poetry written in lines of four, he thought it would be a great name for a blend of four varieties, and a Bordeaux blend at that. And it was very applicable to wine because of the philosophical nature of the poem, and in particular reference made to wine. So every year we print a different quatrain from the poem on the label. There are 160 verses in the full poem, and we've been making the wine since 2006. And this vintage that we have on auction is the 2020 vintage, and it achieved a 5-star platter, which we were very happy to receive. So it's got a great accolade, and it's a blend of Cabernet, 63%, Petit Verdot, which is 31%, and then Merlot and Cabernet Franc, which are 3% each. And it's aged in new oak barrels for 18 months. And we're very excited to showcase it. We've got great packaging, comes in a lovely box. And I must say, uptake in sales the past 12 to 24 months have been very pleasing. So, a great purchase. And I look forward to people tasting it on Saturday.
That's absolutely no surprise. Sales are flying. It is a terrific wine. Just before I let you go, a quick word on somebody I've come to have a huge amount of admiration for, and whose philosophy on not just wine, but I think life as a whole chimes so nicely with the Cape Wine Auction, and that's Charles Hopkins, your cellar master. I rarely go to a wine event where Charles's name doesn't come up as somebody who's taken Cape Winemakers Guild protégés under his wing, who's shared his knowledge, who's given other winemakers a helping hand. I think having wine in which he has had a guiding role at the Cape Wine Auction is a really nice segue, because he is such an extraordinarily generous and wholehearted person.
Yes, so Charles is a wonderful character. He's been with us since the beginning. He even made wine for us before we had a winery. Just one anecdote, when my dad was coming up with the idea of making the Rubaiyat, he came up to Charles talks about my dad coming up to him in the cellar and saying to him, Charles, I want to make this. I want you to make a Bordeaux blend, and I want to call it the Rubaiyat. And then he said to Charles, "Have you heard of the Rubaiyat?" And Charles's reply apparently was, "Unfortunately, no, Sir David. I come from Bredasdorp." And Charles is an Afrikaner with an English name who comes from Bredasdorp and supports Paul Jim at rugby because he lives in Paul, and he's a wonderful character. And as you mentioned, someone that loves to impart his knowledge, and particularly with the younger winemakers. And very proud of the fact that we have protégés coming through the winery on an annual basis. And so far we've had 17 protégés come through the hands of Charles at Grendel. And have gone out into the wine industry to be very successful. So we're very proud of that.
Well, they are wonderful champions of education and the sharing of knowledge at the Grendel, and that will extend into this weekend. De Villiers, we shall see you at the auction. Thanks again for the terrific support, and I shall be watching that right hand of yours very closely when the auction begins in the afternoon.
Look forward to seeing you there, Dan.
De Villiers Graaff at the Grendel, the Rubaiyat, one of the wines on auction, but De Villiers also part of this terrific group of trustees, the architects of the Cape Wine Auction at Laborie this weekend. It's off to Laborie this weekend for the Cape Wine Auction. I think it is the 11th edition. I've been lucky enough to be involved with most of them. And if you were to tell me, ask me, Dan, who's the most excitable person at the auction? Who really gets stuck into it with just so much determination to make sure it goes well and it has such an impact? Then there is a pretty easy winner, and that would be Carolyn Martin from Creation, who has been a stalwart of the Cape Wine Auction and joins us on the show. Carolyn, it's lovely to have you back ahead of a weekend that is so special for you. And I know that it's really special, not just because it's a really cool day out with lovely wine, but because it speaks directly to the other side of your great passion. Yes, there's food and wine, which you do terrifically, but if I look at the work that you've done in the community with education, the Cape Wine Auction just channels directly into exactly that.
Yes, I think education is really the opportunity that we have in South Africa. And one of the most important things for us is to figure out how we can turn jobs into careers. And of course, we employ local people. And the exciting thing is to be kind of looking after them, making sure that their children have a good place to go to school and for aftercare. And, that we're just giving people a world-class education. That's what we really want to do. We want people to have opportunities to be able to make a huge contribution back to society. And I think that the opportunity is when kids are educated, or when kids are, in good after-school care, then parents don't have to worry about children while they're working.
Saturday will be a grand occasion. The Cape Wine Auction always is, and at the end of the day, fingers crossed, all going according to plan, there'll be a not insignificant number up on screen at the end of the afternoon with the money raised. But I'm interested in beyond that, and you know this better than most. Give us a couple of real-life examples of how that money raised is translating into meaningfully changing lives, changing systems, and giving people a bit of hope and a bit of opportunity.
Yeah, well, I mean, for example, the Pebbles project wouldn't have got started in the Hemel and Ardor if we didn't get the first £1 million from the Cape Wine Auction. And I think what is so remarkable about that is how it's really fundamentally changed, certain people's lives in our community. And a great example is that we now have this wonderful young lady called Asto who works for us during our holidays. And she is now a second-year university student at Stellenbosch studying chartered accounting. And she would have fallen out of school in grade 7 if it hadn't been for Pebbles, saving the situation. And that was because the government school in our region closed down halfway through the year in 2019. And so we could actually convert Pebbles to a proper, a full education school. So not only was it sort of looking after first 1,000 days, early childhood development, and then after school care, it then became an education facility until age 13. And basically, it got her through grade 7 and it got her into grade 8. And also the Pebbles project helped her get into a good high school in the Overberg and then into the Marty's program. So there's a lot of guidance that happens through projects like that. The other thing is that we've recently employed 2 youngsters that just finished their skills development training at Pebbles. So we set up a skills development training facility about 2 years ago, and they've been trained as sommeliers and in the International Wine Education Trust. And so they have permanent jobs now at Creation. So these are youngsters that did not finish their secondary education, but have been given a chance to actually, have careers. And I think that that is the great opportunity, is that we must never give up on people. I think it's really important to make sure that we give everyone the opportunities that they deserve. And I think that there is, I'm very excited because I'm about to go to Wine Paris, and I'm going to be attending a white paper that's being released. It's a 3-year study done on the correlation between education and wine economics. So I can't wait to actually look at that to see where the gaps are and what we need to be doing to close those gaps.
Well, please accept an invitation from me when you're back from dazzling Paris to come back on the show, because I'd be fascinated to find out a bit more about that and see what kind of impact is being had and what more impact needs to be had. So pencil that down in the diary. When you return from France, we'd love to have you back on the show.
Thanks. But in the meantime, I will see you on Saturday, and I can't wait. I think the most important thing is that when people visit our tasting room at Creation, I always say to them, they're creating 11 extended jobs in the community. They're supporting projects like Pebbles. It is truly remarkable to see, what that does for the community. It's just incredible in terms of local economic development and opportunities to create careers in the wine industry.
It is indeed. And if you're at the wine auction this weekend, if you're buying anything, I think that's your real win. That's the real lot you're taking home, is that knowledge that you have changed lives. But you are also taking home something pretty cool. And in the case of the lot here, it's one, Caroline, that I think is absolutely perfect, because I think the last study I saw, 8% of all people who make wine or are involved in the industry in South Africa are Finlaysons somehow. It's a sprawling family tree across the Western Cape, and you've taken the family feel right to the heart of the wine that we've got this weekend. It's the 2023 edition of the Emma. This is a terrific father-daughter collaboration. Tell us about this wine and why it's so special to the Martin family.
Yeah, well, our daughter made her first wine when she was 10. She decided that she had fallen in love with Pinot Noir, and that she wanted to make a vintage with her dad. And so he acquiesced, and I must tell you that it was hugely successful. It's incredibly cute, because the other day I was going through drawers and I found this little pink book, and it was typically Emma. In it, it had, the pips of the grapes, saying the pips were ready to pick. You could see that they were ripe, the tannins were correct, It had all the readings of, the Balling readings. Everything was in the book. So everything was diarized and organized, just like Emma. But I think what is so beautiful is that in our industry, it's incredible to be able to have these artisanal skills and pass them from generation to generation. So Emma and Glenn have made their wine. Glenn is actually a qualified viticulturist and winemaker. Emma's decided to go more into the business side of things. So she's just finished her international business degree at Stellenbosch. But she's currently helping me with strategy in the business. And so it's just fabulous to actually, see how we can actually create these intergenerational businesses. So much knowledge passed from one generation to another. And of course, the love for the land, the love for the people, and all the people that we work with, the work that we do is also passed on.
There are always just such wonderful stories coming out of Creation. You've got just a few of them here today. If you'd like to be part of the extended Creation experience, well, you can always go and visit Creation, of course, which is life-changing. Or you could be out at Laborie and bidding furiously on the Emma, the collaboration between winemaker JC and his winemaking daughter Emma as one of the barrels at the Cape Wine Auction this year. Be warned, though, there are going to be a lot of people bidding for this one. Caroline, thank you so much. We'll see you at the weekend, and we'll tie down a date for your post-Paris return to the show to get some feedback on what sounds like another really, really exciting development in the wine world.
Thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you, Dan.
So there we go. Carolyn Martin from the wonderful Finlayson family from Creation, part of the Cape Wine Auction at Laborie this weekend. Wrapping up, Dan Really Likes Wine with Norman Goodfellows this week. Our special edition ahead of the Cape Wine Auction at Laborie is a man who presides over a wine estate that is roughly the size of Honduras. It has got incredible views, it's got all sorts of attractions, but most importantly, it's got a ruggedly good-looking Irish winemaker who's producing some devastatingly good wine. Luke, welcome. Lovely to have you back on the show.
Thanks so much, Dan. It's always a pleasure to be on the show with you.
I almost feel like, since we haven't checked in a little while, how things are going at Vergelegen, because it was a big move a few years ago. It was very much the Lionel Messi leaves Barcelona for Paris Saint-Germain move. You'd settled in reasonably well last time, I see. How are you feeling with things at Vergelegen, and is the wine taking shape? Are things playing out as you'd hoped they would?
They are very much playing out as I hoped they would, and it's like a piece of old hat now. I've really settled in and got to understand the property a lot better, although every day is still a learning experience, being a place that is so big as what we have here. And we haven't had the easiest harvest to get started with. I mean, my first one was a 23 where it was so wet. But I think what really came to the fore is that we still managed to produce something that was quite exceptional out of these harvests, and it pays tribute to actually how good the site is and the property. So I'm really excited about working here and everything like that. And it's been a journey for me, and it's been incredible to see the different soil types that we have here, what they produce, and what expression we get through on the wines.
You were given the keys to one of the most iconic wine properties in South Africa. It was, and I remember you saying in much the same words, both exciting and mildly terrifying at the same time. You've now had some time to really settle in. What surprised you most? What have you learned most about Vergelegen in your tenure to date?
I think the thing that surprised me the most here, Dan, is I grew up in the Cape. I always thought I knew what wind was until I came to this property, and there's no doubt in my mind that the wind is ultimately born on this property. It's a vicious place when it comes to it. Yesterday we had a classic bout of it where it was very extreme, but I think that gives us a uniqueness as well, and it plays a massive factor in our vineyards and the way the fruit expresses itself. I think last year it was a classic case of how extreme it got. I mean, we were very unfortunate in the sense that we've got beautiful old trees all around our property, and it's the one thing that we're very well known for is having a number of oak trees and camphor trees and things like that. And last year we lost about, I think it was about 180 trees or something, big trees to the wind. But it's something that, as I say, is integral to the expression of this property coming through. The other thing that I've found very exciting and very unique here is the number of different soils that we have the pleasure of working with. I mean, you've got the likes of your shales coming through. We have a lot of grey whack here as well. And then you've got your granitic clays and granitic soils. So this all ties together to produce something that's of great complexity, got incredible expression. But most importantly, it's got a sense of place and a uniqueness about it that can really tie us back to this origin. And every day when I'm driving around the property and having a look at what's going on, and you drive up onto places like the Skarpenberg and things like that, you can really understand why Willem Adriaan van der Stel was so dogmatic about wanting this particular site for himself to farm. Because of its unique setting and everything like that. So I can see why it's been around for now 325 years.
You have this extraordinarily diverse property. It gives you so much opportunity as a winemaker, but the challenge of being an artist with every single color in the palette is deciding which ones to use, which brings me to the Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon out of the 2020 vintage that is amongst the barrel lots at the Cape Wine Auction. Why settle on this particular wine, and what is it from Vergelegen, from this array of opportunity you have on the property, that allows this particular wine to develop into something you clearly think is rather special?
Well, I think this wine's got a very unique story behind it and things like that, because it was ultimately one of the final wines that the legendary winemaker of South Africa and of Vasquez in the States, Andre van Rensburg, had started to craft and put together. And when I came across here, there was this parcel of it that was a very unique expression of the site. And it comes from a number of different soils on our property. So it's ultimately, I suppose you could say it's the ultimate expression of cab from our property because of encompassing all the different aspects and elevations and soil types coming through. And it was something that was a wine that's got great intensity, structure, ageability. And as I say, it also ties into the history of Andre being here for 25 years. So he had an innate understanding for what this property had to offer, and particularly with working with the Cabernets. And I think it's a great expression of the varietal coming through. And he's managed to walk the tightrope with it, where the wine's got, yes, it's got drinkability now, but it's got incredible ageability that if you're patient with it, you're going to get great rewards later down the line.
I have had this wine before. It is something quite exceptional. It's a very welcome addition to the barrel array at the auction this weekend, which does bring the wine community together so tightly and so enthusiastically for the occasion. Luke, the Winelands have given you your opportunity, your career, given you so much joy over the years. How special is a weekend like this for you as a South African winemaker?
I think it's an unbelievable weekend, and it's been an unbelievable initiative for so many years now. I mean, it's formed such almost a bedrock of the South African wine scene now. And it's fantastic to see the amount that is given back to the various communities and education programs and things like that. And I think it's something that is so important. It's something that's very important for us personally on the property as well, because we spend a lot of time investing in not only our community on the property, but the surrounding communities as well. I mean, today is actually a classic example that my staff aren't actually in the cellar today. They're out delivering various parcels to school kids for the stationery and things like that in the schools surrounding ourselves. So I think it forms a bedrock of what we stand for, and it's a fantastic initiative that's grown from strength to strength over the years. And I was very fortunate to be part of the first one that ever took place when I was at Grendel. And it's great to see how it continued on this journey.
It can't happen without the support of the whole wine community, and that certainly includes you and the Vergelegen team. So thank you for being part of it this weekend and sticking with the journey that began so many years ago when it very first kicked off. There'll be a long queue waiting to raise paddles for the Vergelegen Reserve Cabernet Sauvignon. I shall be amongst them, but if I don't win the wine then, I'll be down to see you a little later on in the year and make a return visit to one of my favourite estates, and we can spend 7 or 8 weeks trying to get around the entire Vergelegen property.
Thanks so much, Dan. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Luca Cunningham, the old Celtic word, which means a winemaker who samples much of his own product, giving us the insight into the reserve cab that is at the auction this weekend. And wrapping up, Dan really likes wine for another week. It's the Cape Wine Auction at Laborie on Saturday. I shall be at the stage flogging lots with the help of the great Roland Peens. We're in for a terrific time, and most importantly, although we'll have loads of fun and have a terrific afternoon, we'll be raising a lot of money and changing a lot of lives through the act of people coming together with wine, and that makes it a very special day. See you next week. Goodbye.